I will never forget the chill that ran down my spine, freezing me right there in the quiet living room, the afternoon sun slanting through the blinds, dust motes dancing in the light. It was the moment I read those words, scratched in my daughter-in-law Melissa's neat, looping script in her private diary. The old woman needs to be in a nursing home as soon as possible. We need this house for ourselves. My breath hitched. My hands started to tremble, the leather-bound book suddenly feeling heavy as lead. That was the precise moment the ground shifted beneath my feet, the moment I realized that in my daughter-in-law's eyes, I wasn't family. I wasn't Daniel's mother, or Emma and Tyler's grandmother. I was simply an obstacle, an inconvenient piece of furniture that needed to be removed. It felt like a physical blow, stealing the air from my lungs. It was a betrayal so sharp, so cold, it burned right through me. That's the truth I'm sharing with you today. The raw, painful truth of how my world tilted on its axis because of a secret diary. If you are listening to this story, thank you so much for being here. Let us know where you are joining us from in the world, and do not forget to subscribe to become part of our growing community. It all began 3 years after my dear husband Michael passed away. The silence in our old house became too loud, the rooms too empty. My son, Daniel, bless his heart, suggested I move in with him and his family in Boston. He and Melissa had just bought a lovely 3-bedroom house in a quiet suburban neighborhood, the kind with big maple trees lining the streets and kids riding bikes on the sidewalks. It seemed like the perfect solution. I sold our home, the place Michael and I had built a life in, and used a significant portion of the proceeds, 40% of the new house's value to be exact, from Michael's life insurance, to help them with the down payment. It felt right, investing in my family's future, securing a place where I could be close to my son and my precious grandchildren, Emma and Tyler. I tried my best to be helpful, not a burden. I am Joyce Wilson, 69 years young, though some days feel older. I spent 35 years as a bank accountant, meticulous and careful with numbers, a skill that came in handy as I also contributed towards the monthly household bills, trying to ease their financial load. My days settled into a comfortable rhythm, preparing breakfast, seeing the kids off to school, tidying up, maybe some light gardening if the weather was nice. Then, I would pick up Emma, who is 10, and Tyler, who is 7, from the bus stop. We would have snacks, work on homework, maybe bake some cookies. Michael always loved my chocolate chip cookies. They are wonderful children, bright sparks full of laughter and questions, and those hours with them were the highlight of my day. They clung to me, told me their secrets, showered me with the unconditional love only grandchildren can give. It was for them, for Daniel, that I tried so hard to make this living arrangement work. I valued my independence, my dignity, but more than anything, I cherished my family. I just wanted a peaceful life, surrounded by the people I loved. But peace. Well, peace was often in short supply when Melissa was around. She is Daniel's wife, 38 years old, a marketing manager with ambition that seemed to radiate from her. She was always polite, outwardly at least. Good morning, Joyce. Dinner was lovely, Joyce, but her smiles rarely reached her eyes. There was a coolness there, a distance I could never quite bridge, no matter how hard I tried. Sometimes it was subtle things, a sigh when I asked a question, a way of rearranging things right after I had tidied up, little comments veiled as helpful advice that somehow always left me feeling small, inadequate. Oh, Joyce, maybe let me handle the dishwasher? You sometimes put the plastics on the bottom rack. Or, are you sure you remembered to lock the back door? You have been a little forgetful lately. Little digs, expertly placed, that slowly chipped away at my confidence. Daniel, my sweet boy, now 42 and a software engineer, always seemed caught in the middle. He loves me, I know he does. But he hates conflict even more. He would try to smooth things over, make excuses for Melissa, urge me to just give it time. He wanted harmony, but he seemed unable, or perhaps unwilling, to confront the underlying tension his wife created. He saw the surface politeness and chose not to look deeper. So, I kept my feelings mostly to myself, confiding only occasionally in my dear friend, Gloria Mason. Gloria and I go way back, and she always offered a listening ear. Then came that Tuesday afternoon. Melissa had rushed off to a work meeting, leaving her designer handbag gaping open on the armchair in the living room. As I went to straighten the cushions, a small crimson-red diary tumbled out, landing softly on the rug. My first instinct was to put it right back. It felt wrong, prying into her private thoughts, however cold she might be towards me. But as I picked it up, it fell open to a page near the middle. And there, stark against the cream-colored paper, was my name, Joyce. Just seeing it written there, in that private space, sent a jolt of unease through me. What could she possibly be writing about me? Was it more complaints? More criticism? A wave of dread washed over me, battling with my ingrained sense of propriety. Should I look? Shouldn't I? My heart pounded against my ribs. What if it confirmed my worst fears? What if it was nothing? But some instinct, some deep-seated feeling that something was fundamentally wrong, urged me on. Taking a deep breath, steeling myself, I sank onto the edge of the sofa and began to read the lines penned beneath my name. Reading those first few sentences, I thought I understood the depth of her dislike for me. It hurt, deeply, but it wasn't entirely unexpected given her coolness. But as my eyes scanned down the page, and then compelled by a terrible fascination, as I turned to the next page, a different kind of cold seeped into my bones. This wasn't just about personal dislike or irritation. This was something else entirely. This was a plan, meticulously laid out, a calculated strategy. It was a plot that had been brewing for a long time, a trap I had been walking towards, completely unaware, blinded by my love for my family and my desire for peace. And I was the target. My fingers, usually so steady from years of counting currency and balancing ledgers, trembled as I held that crimson book. It felt alien in my hands, illicit. Part of me screamed to close it, shove it back into the expensive handbag, pretend I had never seen it. That part of me, the Joyce who always followed the rules, who valued privacy and propriety above all else, was horrified. But another part, a primal instinct for self-preservation perhaps, whispered that ignorance was no longer an option. Melissa's calculated coolness, the veiled barbs, Daniel's hesitant reassurances, they all clicked into place with a terrifying clarity. This diary might hold the key to understanding the undercurrents that had made my life here feel so precarious, so subtly unwelcoming. So, I read. My eyes flew across the page, absorbing words that felt like tiny shards of ice piercing my heart. It wasn't just a fleeting thought or an angry outburst scribbled down in a moment of frustration. It was methodical. Spoke to Daniel again about Mom, one entry read. He is still hesitant talking about duty and family. Needs another push. Must emphasize her forgetfulness. Maybe mention the time she left the stove burner on low. Need to start documenting these things more formally. Another entry, dated just a week prior. Looked into options for assisted living nearby. The brochure for Silver Maples looks promising, secure unit. Need to frame it as the best option for her safety. He'll come around eventually. He always does. And then, the sentence that had first caught my eye, the one that stopped my breath. The old woman needs to be in a nursing home as soon as possible. We need this house for ourselves. For ourselves? Not because I was truly declining, not out of genuine concern for my well-being, but because I, Joyce Wilson, who had poured a significant part of her late husband's legacy into this very house, who cared for their children daily, who contributed financially, was now seen merely as an impediment to their plans, their desires. The warmth I felt just moments before, thinking of Emma and Tyler's hugs, turned to ash in my mouth. How could Melissa look me in the eye each morning, accept the breakfast I made, the help I gave with her children, while secretly plotting to dispose of me like expired milk? And Daniel? My own son? The entry mentioned his hesitation, his talk of duty. So, he knew. Maybe not the full extent. Maybe Melissa was feeding him a carefully curated narrative of my supposed decline, but he knew this was being discussed. He wasn't protecting me. He was being managed, persuaded. The thought hurt almost as much as Melissa's outright cruelty. My gentle, non-confrontational son was being swayed, manipulated into seeing his own mother as a burden to be offloaded. The grandchildren. What would happen to them? To our afternoons filled with stories and homework help? Would they visit me in some sterile facility? Would Melissa even allow it? Or would she slowly phase me out of their lives too? The image of their confused, sad faces made my stomach clench. I sat there for what felt like an eternity, the diary open on my lap, the silence of the house pressing in. The initial shock began to recede, replaced by a cold, hard knot of grief and burgeoning anger. But beneath that, something else stirred. The old accountant in me, the part that recognized patterns, that assessed risks, that planned meticulously. Melissa thought she was dealing with a frail, slightly forgetful old woman. She underestimated me. She underestimated the quiet strength forged through years of balancing budgets, managing accounts, and navigating life's inevitable losses. Reading those first few sentences, I had thought I understood the depth of her dislike for me. It hurt, deeply, but it wasn't entirely unexpected given her coolness. But as my eyes scanned down the page, compelled by a terrible fascination, and as I carefully, deliberately turned to the next page, a different kind of cold seeped into my bones. I saw mentions of property values, investment opportunities, a startup idea Melissa was passionate about. This was not just about personal dislike or irritation, or even just wanting the house to themselves. This was something else entirely. This was a plan, meticulously laid out. A calculated strategy aimed at something far bigger than just getting rid of me. It was an elaborate scheme, cloaked in false concern, a plot that had been brewing for a long time, a trap I had been walking towards, completely unaware, blinded by my love for my family and my desire for peace. And I was the target. What I read next confirmed it wasn't just about kicking me out. It was about what kicking me out would allow them to do. Carefully, almost reverently, I closed the crimson diary. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely tuck it back into Melissa's handbag, arranging it just so, hoping she would never suspect it had been disturbed. The act felt deceptive, foreign to my nature, but a cold certainty was settling in my gut. Knowledge was my only shield right now. Pretending everything was normal was perhaps the hardest thing I have ever had to do. Later that evening, sitting at the dinner table, listening to Melissa recount her day with forced brightness, watching Daniel nod along, trying to meet my gaze with a strained smile, felt like performing in a play I had never rehearsed. Every casual word, every polite inquiry felt loaded, layered with unspoken meaning. Did she notice my trembling hands as I passed the salad bowl? Did Daniel sense the turmoil behind my carefully blank expression? The food tasted like cardboard. I pushed the mashed potatoes around my plate, murmuring something about not being very hungry when Melissa pointedly asked if I was feeling all right. "Just a little tired, dear," I managed, forcing a weak smile. Her eyes lingered on me for a fraction too long, a calculating glint behind the facade of concern. Or was I imagining it? Paranoia is a bitter pill, but I swallowed it down, trying to appear placid, unremarkable. The cheerful chatter of Emma and Tyler, oblivious to the adult currents swirling around them, was the only thing that anchored me. Looking at their innocent faces, I felt a fierce, protective surge. I could not fall apart. Not yet. That night, sleep offered no escape. Melissa's words echoed in my mind, mingling with memories of Michael, of the life we had built, the dreams we had shared. Dreams that now felt tarnished by the harsh reality of my current situation. Was this what my life had been reduced to? An inconvenience waiting to be tidied away? The pain was immense, a physical ache in my chest. But beneath the hurt, a different emotion began to smolder, a slow burning anger, quiet and deep. And with it, a question. Why? Why the elaborate deception? Why the rush? Surely there had to be more to it than just wanting the house to themselves. Driven by this gnawing unease, I waited until the house was dark and silent, until the rhythmic breathing from Daniel and Melissa's room down the hall told me they were asleep. Tiptoeing back into the living room, heart pounding, I retrieved the diary once more. This time, I was not just looking for confirmation of her dislike. I was searching for the reason. I turned the pages carefully, my accountant's eye scanning for details, for figures, for anything that might explain the urgency behind her plan. And then I found it. Buried deeper within the entries, past the complaints about my presence and the notes about my lapses, was the real motivation. Melissa wasn't just dreaming of an empty nest. She was dreaming of capital. She wrote extensively about a tech startup she wanted to launch, something involving online marketing analytics. She detailed her frustration with finding investors, her impatience with the slow pace of her career, and then the chilling connection. "Selling the house is the only way," one entry declared. "Once the old woman is legally settled elsewhere and Daniel agrees, we can access the equity. It's a gold mine just sitting here." My blood ran cold. It wasn't just about me being a burden. It was about the house I had helped buy. The 40% I had invested, Michael's legacy, was the key to unlocking her business ambitions. I was not just an annoyance. I was a legal and financial roadblock. My presence, my name on the deed alongside Daniel's, complicated things. Getting me declared mentally unfit, placing me under guardianship, putting me in a home. It wasn't just about convenience. It was about control. Control over the property, control over the equity. As if to hammer the point home, tucked into a pocket at the back of the diary, I found a folded printout. It was a draft email, addressed to a lawyer specializing in elder law, though the name seemed unfamiliar, not the family lawyer Daniel occasionally used. The subject line read, "Inquiry regarding asset management for parent with diminished capacity." My eyes scanned the text, feeling sicker with each word. Melissa was asking pointed questions about the process of gaining power of attorney, about scenarios where a co-owner of a property could be deemed incapable of making decisions, about liquidating assets in the best interest of the parent's ongoing care needs. She was already laying the legal groundwork. Suddenly, Melissa's recent behavior snapped into sharp focus. the gentle suggestions that I write things down because I was so forgetful. The way she had started asking me to repeat myself, even when I knew I had spoken clearly. The exaggerated sighs when I misplaced my reading glasses or took a moment longer to recall a name. She was not just being passively aggressive. She was actively, deliberately building a case against my competence. Documenting evidence, manufacturing it where necessary, all to support the narrative she needed to sell to Daniel and eventually to a lawyer, maybe even a judge. The betrayal felt complete, absolute. This was not just family friction. It was a calculated, predatory scheme. And Daniel? How much did he truly know? Was he a reluctant participant, easily swayed by his wife's stronger will? Or was he more complicit than I wanted to believe? The ambiguity was agonizing. Could he really stand by and let this happen? The son I raised, the boy who used to bring me wilting bouquets of dandelions? Laying in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, the hurt warred with a newfound steely resolve. I would not let Melissa Wilson, with her ambition and her cold heart, erase me. I would not be shuffled off to some secure unit while she cashed in on my life's savings and my husband's memory. The shock was still there. The pain was a raw wound, but the accountant in me, the planner, the survivor, was waking up. I needed help. I needed advice. I needed someone who understood the complexities of the law, someone I could trust implicitly. My thoughts turned immediately to Gloria. Gloria Mason. Sharp as a tack, even in retirement, my dearest friend. Yes, I would call Gloria first thing in the morning. The next morning, I waited until Daniel and Melissa had left for work, and the children were safely on the school bus. The house felt eerily quiet, charged with the secrets I now carried. My hands still trembled slightly as I dialed Gloria Mason's number, a number I knew by heart after nearly 40 years of friendship. Hearing her warm, no-nonsense voice on the other end was like finding a lifeline. Gloria, I began, trying to keep my voice steady. I need your help. Something's happened. Something serious. We met later that morning at a small, quiet cafe downtown, a place where we often shared coffee and pastries, dissecting life's ups and downs. But this time, the familiar comfort of our routine felt overshadowed by the gravity of my situation. I laid it all out for her. The diary entries, the chilling plan to put me in a home, the financial motive, the draft email to the elder law attorney. I watched Gloria's expression shift from concerned friend to sharp legal mind. Her initial sympathy quickly hardened into focused indignation. The conniving little... Gloria muttered, tapping her manicured nails on the table. Joyce, this is outrageous, predatory. As a retired lawyer herself, though not specialized in this exact field, she immediately grasped the legal implications and the malicious intent behind Melissa's actions. What can I do, Gloria? I asked, feeling a sliver of hope ignite amidst the despair. My name is on the deed along with Daniel's for the 40% I put in. Doesn't that protect me? It helps, significantly, Gloria confirmed, leaning forward. You are a legal owner. They cannot just sell the house out from under you without your consent, at least not easily. But... She paused, her brow furrowing. The lack of a formal written agreement about your right to reside here indefinitely, beyond just ownership, could be a vulnerability. And this business about documenting diminished capacity, that is the angle she is working. If she can convince Daniel, and potentially a doctor or even a court, that you are incapable of managing your own affairs, she might try to petition for guardianship or conservatorship. That could give her, or Daniel under her influence, the power to make decisions about your residence and your finances, including your share of the house. Hearing Gloria lay it out so starkly solidified my fear, but also clarified the threat. Melissa wasn't just being cruel, she was being strategic. And I needed to be strategic too. So, what do I do? I repeated, my voice barely a whisper. First, Gloria said firmly, her gaze meeting mine, you do not confront her. Not yet. Don't let her know you are onto her. That would only make her accelerate her plans or become more careful. We need time to build your defense. Second, we need to consult with an expert, someone who specializes in elder law and real estate litigation. I know just the person. Richard Hayes. Sharp, ethical, and he doesn't suffer fools gladly. Third, you need to start gathering your own evidence quietly. Gathering evidence. It felt strange, almost sordid, to think about my life this way, documenting interactions with my own family. But Gloria was right. If Melissa was building a case against me, I needed to build one in my defense. I started paying closer attention, seeing Melissa's actions through a new, painfully clear lens. The helpful reminders became transparent attempts to document forgetfulness. Questions like, Mom, are you sure you took your medication this morning? You seem a bit foggy, were no longer innocent inquiries, but attempts to plant seeds of doubt, possibly even in front of Daniel or the children. One afternoon, I saw her subtly recording me on her phone while asking me a series of slightly confusing questions about errands I had run earlier. The casual way she did it, pretending to just check her messages, sent a shiver down my spine. She was actively manufacturing proof of my incompetence. Living under the same roof became a tightrope walk. I had to appear normal, unsuspecting, while inwardly recoiling from Melissa's calculated charade and aching from Daniel's passive complicity. Every meal felt like a performance, every conversation a potential minefield. The stress was immense, a constant pressure behind my eyes. But seeing Emma and Tyler feeling their uncomplicated affection fueled my resolve. I was not just fighting for myself. I was fighting for my right to remain in their lives, to be their grandmother, not some distant figure confined to visiting hours. That night, looking out my bedroom window at the quiet suburban street, a sense of calm settled over me, pushing back the fear and hurt. Melissa thought she held all the cards. She saw me as weak, fading, easy to manipulate. She could not have been more wrong. Anger gave way to determination. I would not let her win. I would not be erased. Have you ever had to face betrayal from someone you trusted? Someone within your own family? It is a unique kind of pain, isn't it? Please share your thoughts, or perhaps even your own experiences, in the comments below. Sometimes, just knowing that we are not alone in these struggles can give us the strength to carry on. As I stood there, watching the moon peek through the clouds, I knew I could not let my emotions dictate my actions. Raw anger would only play into Melissa's hands, reinforcing the narrative she wanted to create. No, this required precision, strategy, like a chess game. And while Melissa might think she was about to declare checkmate, she had no idea that her opponent was just beginning to plan her countermove. I had a plan forming, a quiet, meticulous plan, a plan that Melissa Wilson, in her arrogance, would never anticipate from the forgetful old woman she was so eager to discard. The days following my meeting with Gloria were fraught with tension. I moved through the house like a ghost, observing, listening, my senses on high alert. While Melissa continued her subtle campaign of documenting my supposed decline, I maintained my facade of quiet compliance. But beneath the surface, a storm was brewing. My conversation with Gloria had lit a fire under me, but the true catalyst for immediate action came unexpectedly one rainy Thursday morning. Melissa was on a work call in the home office, the door slightly ajar. Normally, I would never eavesdrop, but Gloria's warning echoed in my ears. Stay alert. I was refilling the coffee machine nearby when I heard Melissa's voice. lower and more conspiratorial than her usual professional tone. "Yes, Dr. Ramirez, thank you for fitting her in next Tuesday." "No, she is not aware of the appointment's true purpose. We are telling her it is just a routine checkup." "Excellent. And the call with Silver Maples is still set for Friday?" "Perfect. This needs to move forward quickly." "Dr. Ramirez? A checkup I knew nothing about?" "Silver Maples, the assisted living facility mentioned in her diary." My blood turned to ice water. It wasn't just a vague plan anymore. Appointments were being made. A psychiatric evaluation disguised as a routine visit. A discussion with the nursing home manager. The timeline had suddenly accelerated dramatically. They were actively trying to railroad me into a diagnosis and a placement before I even knew what was happening. There was no more time for cautious observation. I had to act, and I had to act now. That night, sleep was impossible. The fear I had been suppressing rose, cold and suffocating. Images flooded my mind. Sterile corridors, locked doors, the pitying glances of strangers, being separated from Emma and Tyler, losing control over my own life, my own body, my own mind. The fear of becoming invisible, voiceless, just another elderly woman warehoused and forgotten. It was the ultimate loss of dignity, the very thing I had tried so hard to maintain. Was this how my story ended? Defined by Melissa's lies, confined by her ambition? Tears welled up, hot and stinging. For a moment, I let the despair wash over me. Then I thought of Michael. I remembered sitting with him in the hospital during his final weeks. He had taken my hand, his grip surprisingly strong despite his illness, and looked me straight in the eye. "Joyce," he had rasped, "you are the strongest person I know. Stronger than you think. Don't ever let anyone make you feel small." His words, tucked away in my heart for 3 long years, resurfaced with startling clarity. He was right. I had managed accounts worth millions. I had raised a son. I had navigated widowhood. I had faced loss and kept going. I was not small, and I would not let Melissa Wilson or anyone else diminish me or dictate the final chapters of my life. The fear did not disappear, but it shifted. It became fuel. The tears dried, replaced by a cold, hard resolve. I would not just defend myself, I would take control. I would rewrite the ending Melissa had planned for me. The very next morning, I called Richard Hayes, the elder law attorney Gloria had recommended. His office was downtown, discreet and professional. Sitting across from him, explaining the situation, the diary, the financial motive, the overheard phone call, Melissa's manufactured evidence, felt like shedding a heavy burden. Mr. Hayes listened patiently, his expression serious, occasionally making notes. He asked sharp, insightful questions, his legal mind dissecting the situation with precision. "Mr. Hayes," I said, my voice firm, "Melissa thinks she is dealing with a confused old woman she can easily manipulate. She is mistaken. I need to protect myself, my assets, and my future. Immediately." "I understand completely, Joyce," he replied, his tone reassuring yet professional. "And based on what you have told me, your concerns are entirely valid. Melissa's actions border on elder abuse, specifically financial exploitation and psychological manipulation. We need to put safeguards in place immediately before she can proceed with this evaluation or attempt to gain control." And so began my counteroffensive, executed with the quiet precision of my old accounting days. Following Mr. Hayes's expert guidance, we moved swiftly. The first, most crucial step was addressing the house. He explained the benefits of transferring my 40% ownership into a limited liability company, or LLC, with myself as the sole managing member. This creates a legal entity, he explained. Your share of the property will belong to the LLC, not directly to you as an individual. Any attempt to force a sale or transfer ownership regarding that share would have to go through the company, requiring your signature as the manager. It puts a significant legal barrier between Melissa's plans and your property rights. It makes it much harder, if not impossible, for them to seize control of your asset, even if they pursue guardianship. The paperwork was drawn up and filed with surprising speed. It felt like laying down the first solid brick in my wall of defense. Simultaneously, we addressed the threat of forced medical decisions or financial control. I signed a durable power of attorney for finances and a healthcare proxy, appointing Gloria as my agent. Gloria, bless her loyal heart, readily agreed, understanding the critical importance of having someone trustworthy designated to make decisions only if I became truly incapacitated, not just declared so by an ambitious daughter-in-law and a potentially biased doctor. These documents explicitly stated my wishes regarding my living situation and medical care, creating another layer of legal protection against unwanted institutionalization. While Mr. Hayes handled the legal fortifications, I turned my attention to securing my financial independence. I met with my financial advisor, a woman I had trusted for years. We reviewed my savings, my modest investment portfolio, and my pension. Following her advice, I began diversifying, moving a portion of my savings into reliable dividend-paying stocks and real estate investment trusts, or REITs. The goal was to create steady, passive income streams, ensuring I wouldn't be financially dependent on Daniel or the equity trapped in the house. I also enrolled in an online course about property law and digital literacy. Arming myself with knowledge was just as important as hiring a lawyer. And quietly, discreetly, I started exploring other living options. I contacted Linda Parker, a coordinator at a local senior advocacy organization Gloria knew. I explained I was looking for independent living, a place where I could maintain my autonomy and dignity. Linda was warm, understanding, and incredibly helpful. She told me about a place called Sunset Gardens, a well-regarded community for active seniors, and mentioned they sometimes had openings for part-time financial consultants for residents. A spark of excitement ignited within me. A potential new home and a way to use my skills again? It felt like a door opening, leading away from the oppressive atmosphere of Daniel and Melissa's house. Each step I took, the LLC formation, the power of attorney documents, the financial restructuring, the housing search, felt like reclaiming a piece of myself, reinforcing my boundaries, taking back the power Melissa had tried to strip away. I was no longer just reacting to her plot. I was actively building my own future, on my own terms. Then, one evening, Melissa approached me with that familiar, falsely sweet smile. "Joyce," she began, "Daniel and I were thinking, it might be good for us all to sit down together this weekend. Just a family chat, you know, to talk about the future, make sure everyone is comfortable and taken care of." My heart gave a lurch. This was it. The family chat, where they planned to spring their proposal, armed with their manufactured concerns and brochures for silver maples. They thought they were setting the stage for my removal, but I knew something they did not. While they were busy planning my future behind my back, I had already built mine, and I was ready. Hearing Melissa's words, the invitation to the family chat, did not provoke the panic it might have a week earlier. Instead, a strange sense of calm washed over me. It was the calm of knowing you are prepared, the quiet confidence that comes from having a plan and having executed it meticulously. Let them call their meeting. Let them lay out their carefully constructed arguments and their feigned concern. I knew what was coming, and more importantly, I knew how I would respond. In the days leading up to that fateful Saturday evening, I finalized the remaining pieces of my strategy. The confirmation came through from Richard Hayes. The LLC, Wilson Legacy Holdings, was officially registered, and my 40% share of the house title had been successfully transferred to it. Holding the official documents in my hand felt like holding a shield. My financial advisor confirmed the restructuring of my investments was complete, with the first dividends expected the following month. Linda Parker from the Senior Advocacy Group called with wonderful news. A lovely one-bedroom apartment had become available at Sunset Gardens, overlooking the community rose garden, and the resident council was indeed interested in interviewing me for the part-time financial consulting role. I scheduled a viewing for the following week. Each confirmation was another layer of armor. I felt less like a cornered animal and more like a chess player calmly positioning her pieces for the endgame. I continued my routine with the grandchildren, cherishing our time together even more intensely, knowing that our relationship might soon change, but determined it would not be severed by Melissa's machinations. I made sure Emma knew how proud I was of her book report and helped Tyler practice tying his shoes, anchoring myself in the simple, tangible joys of their lives. Their innocent love was a balm to my wounded spirit, strengthening my resolve to protect not only myself, but also their connection to their grandmother. I even started packing, discreetly, a few boxes at a time, storing them in the back of my closet. Keepsakes, photo albums, important papers, clothes I particularly loved. It was a quiet act of claiming my future, preparing for my departure on my own terms. Melissa, preoccupied with her own plotting, seemed oblivious. She likely interpreted my quietness as resignation, perhaps even a sign that her campaign of suggestion was working, that I was indeed becoming more withdrawn and confused. Let her think that. Her underestimation was my greatest advantage. The night before the scheduled chat, I sat down with Gloria again, reviewing everything. We went over the LLC documents, the power of attorney forms, the copies I had discreetly made of the incriminating diary pages and the draft email to Melissa's lawyer. Gloria, ever the pragmatist, helped me rehearse how I might respond, advising me to stay calm, factual, and avoid emotional outbursts. "Let the documents speak for themselves, Joyce," she advised. "Your composure will be your most powerful weapon against her theatrics." As Saturday evening approached, the atmosphere in the house grew thick with unspoken anticipation. Melissa was unusually solicitous, offering me tea, asking if I was comfortable. Daniel seemed nervous, avoiding my eyes, fiddling with his watch. They were preparing their stage, setting their scene. They had no idea I had already built my own theater, complete with props and a script they could never have imagined. When Melissa finally gathered us in the living room after dinner, her expression a careful blend of concern and gravity, I took a deep breath. The moment had arrived. They thought this was the beginning of the end for my life as I knew it. They did not realize it was the beginning of my new beginning. As Melissa started her carefully rehearsed speech about my well-being, my supposed memory lapses, and the wonderful opportunity that Silver Maples represented, I felt a surprising lack of fear. Instead, I felt ready. She thought she was delivering a verdict. She had no idea I was about to present the evidence that would change everything. The trap was set, but not for me. Melissa had just begun to detail the benefits of the secure unit, her voice dripping with false sympathy, when I held up a hand, politely but firmly interrupting her. "Melissa, Daniel," I said, my voice calm and steady, surprising even myself. "Before you continue, I think there are a few things you both need to see." The look of surprise on their faces was palpable. They were not expecting me to speak, let alone take control of the conversation. Their meticulously planned intervention was already going off script, and I was just getting started. The silence that followed my interruption was heavy, charged. Melissa stared at me, her carefully constructed mask of concern momentarily slipping, revealing a flash of irritation. Daniel just looked bewildered, glancing between his wife and me as if unsure what was happening. "See what, Mom?" Daniel asked hesitantly, his brow furrowed. Instead of answering immediately, I reached for the slim laptop case I had placed beside my armchair earlier. Opening the laptop, I turned it so the screen faced them both. I had prepared a simple presentation. Scanned pages from the Crimson Diary, the draft email to the elder law attorney, screenshots of websites for Silver Maples alongside searches for local real estate appraisers bookmarked on Melissa's computer profile, which I had glimpsed when she'd asked me to look something up for her once. I clicked through them slowly, deliberately, letting the evidence sink in. "I believe this belongs to you, Melissa," I said calmly, my voice even, as the first image, a page from her diary detailing the plan to sell the house, appeared on the screen. "Specifically, this entry about needing the house equity for your startup and needing me legally settled elsewhere first." Melissa's face went white, then flushed a furious red. You went through my private things?" she sputtered, her voice rising. That's an invasion of privacy. How dare you?" "Is it?" I countered, keeping my tone level. "Or is it self-preservation? When I accidentally found this after it fell from your bag, I discovered plans being made about me, without my knowledge or consent. Plans based on lies, designed to strip me of my home, my savings, and my autonomy." I clicked to the next slide, the draft email inquiring about asset management for someone with diminished capacity. Daniel looked utterly poleaxed, his gaze fixed on the screen, then shifting to his wife, a horrified disbelief dawning in his eyes. "Melissa, what is this? Diminished capacity? Selling the house?" "She's twisting things, Danny," Melissa insisted, turning to him, her voice laced with panic now. "She's confused. She's making things up. This proves she isn't well." "Does it?" I asked quietly, moving to the next slide, the notes about Dr. Ramirez and the call with Silver Maples. "Or does it prove a calculated effort to have me declared incompetent so you could gain control of my share of this property? The 40% I contributed, Melissa. Money from Michael's life insurance." The mention of his father seemed to strike Daniel. He sank back into his chair, looking pale and shaken. "And just so we are clear about the legal standing," I continued, reaching into the folder beside my laptop, "my 40% share of this house is no longer held in my personal name." I placed the official documents on the coffee table, the certificate of formation for Wilson Legacy Holdings, LLC, and the updated property deed showing the LLC as a co-owner. As of 3 days ago, my ownership is held by my company, of which I am the sole managing member. Any decisions regarding this portion of the property require my signature, in my capacity as director. Your inquiries to that lawyer about managing my assets are, therefore, quite irrelevant now." The color drained completely from Melissa's face. She stared at the documents as if they were venomous snakes. The legal barrier I had erected was clear, solid, and irrefutable. Her carefully laid plan had just hit a brick wall. For a moment, she seemed speechless, her ambition and calculation momentarily short-circuited by the reality of her exposure and the foiling of her scheme. Daniel finally found his voice, though it was hoarse. "Mom, I didn't know. Not all of this. Melissa told me she was worried about you, that you were getting forgetful, maybe needed more help." "I understand, Daniel," I said, my voice softening slightly as I looked at my son. He looked lost, caught between his wife's manipulations and the undeniable evidence before him. "Melissa has been very persuasive. She has been building a narrative for some time now." Melissa, recovering her composure, switched tactics. The feigned concern vanished, replaced by icy fury. "This is ridiculous. You're paranoid. Fine. If that's how you feel, maybe you should move out. But don't think you can just dictate terms. We'll get lawyers involved. You violated my privacy." "You are welcome to pursue any legal action you deem appropriate, Melissa," I replied calmly. Richard Hayes had prepared me for this possibility. "However, I believe you will find that my actions were taken to protect myself from documented intent to commit financial elder abuse. As for moving out, I agree. It is clear I am no longer welcome here, nor would I wish to stay under these circumstances. I paused, letting the weight of my words settle in the tense room. I am not here to dictate, but to inform you of my decisions. I will be moving out within the week. I saw a flicker of triumph in Melissa's eyes, quickly extinguished by my next statement. I have already made arrangements. And Daniel, I turned to my son, as per the spirit of our original understanding when I contributed 40% towards this house, I will require that share to be bought out based on the current market value. I have already initiated an independent appraisal. The demand hung in the air, clear and non-negotiable. I wasn't just leaving. I was taking back what was rightfully mine, leaving them to figure out how to manage the financial consequences of their actions. Melissa looked like she wanted to explode, but faced with the legal documents, the diary entries, and my unexpected preparedness, she seemed momentarily stunned into silence again. The power dynamic in the room had irrevocably shifted. The immediate aftermath of my announcement was thick with a stunned, acrimonious silence. Melissa seemed to be vibrating with suppressed rage, her face tight, her eyes darting towards Daniel, likely willing him to challenge me, to argue, to defend her. But Daniel remained slumped in his chair, his face buried in his hands. He looked utterly devastated, torn between the woman he married and the mother who had just calmly dismantled her elaborate deception. "Buy you out?" Melissa finally choked out, her voice tight with fury. "With what? You think we just have that kind of money lying around, after everything we've done for you?" "Everything you've done for me, Melissa?" I repeated, letting a touch of ice enter my voice. "Or everything you've done to me?" Let's be clear. The 40% was my investment, Michael's legacy. It was never a gift intended to be absorbed into your assets once I became inconvenient. As for how you manage the buyout, that is something you and Daniel will need to discuss. Perhaps reassess the budget for that startup. The barb hit its mark. Melissa flinched as if struck. "Mom, please," Daniel said, looking up, his eyes pleading. "Can we just talk about this? Without lawyers? Without all this?" He gestured vaguely at the laptop and the documents. "There has to be a way." "Daniel," I said gently but firmly. The time for talking ended when Melissa drafted emails to lawyers about my diminished capacity and made secret appointments to have me evaluated. Trust has been broken, fundamentally. I am not doing this out of anger, though heaven knows I have felt plenty of it. I am doing this because I need to protect myself and secure my future. A future that clearly cannot be under this roof. The potential cost of my actions weighed on me. The strain on my relationship with Daniel, the possible impact on my connection with Emma and Tyler. Melissa, sensing Daniel's wavering, tried one last desperate ploy. "Think about the children, Joyce. Are you really going to tear this family apart? Upset them like this? What will they think?" "I am thinking about the children," I responded, my voice steady. "I am thinking about the example I set for them. Do I teach them that it is acceptable to be treated with disrespect, to be manipulated and discarded when you are no longer deemed useful? Or do I teach them the importance of self-respect, dignity, and setting boundaries, even when it is difficult? I choose the latter. They deserve a grandmother who values herself, not one who allows herself to be slowly erased." My resolve seemed to finally penetrate Daniel's distress. He looked at Melissa, truly looked at her, perhaps for the first time seeing past the facade she presented, and a flicker of understanding and profound disappointment crossed his face. He didn't defend her. He didn't argue with me further. He simply nodded slowly, a silent acknowledgement of the painful truth. In that moment, Melissa must have realized she had lost not only the house equity she craved, but also her absolute hold over her husband. The carefully constructed narrative had crumbled, leaving her exposed. Seeing that the immediate confrontation was over and that my position was clear and legally fortified, I decided it was time to reveal the full extent of my preparations. As I said, I continued, my tone shifting slightly, becoming lighter, more forward-looking. I have already made arrangements. I won't be needing placement in Silver Maples, thank you very much. I allowed myself a small, wry smile. I have secured a lovely apartment at Sunset Gardens. I saw a flicker of surprise on Daniel's face, maybe even relief. Sunset Gardens had a reputation as a vibrant, upscale community for independent seniors, a far cry from the institutional image of Silver Maples. It's a beautiful community, I went on, picturing the sunlit apartment overlooking the rose garden. And interestingly enough, they were looking for someone with a background in finance to offer part-time consulting to residents, helping them manage their retirement funds and protect themselves from, well, I paused delicately. Situations like this. They have offered me the position. I accepted this morning. The finality of it, the completeness of my plan, seemed to land with full force. I wasn't just escaping a bad situation. I was stepping into a new life, one I had proactively built for myself, complete with a home, financial independence, and meaningful work. I had not just defended, I had advanced. Melissa looked utterly deflated, her earlier fury replaced by a kind of stunned defeat. Daniel just stared at me, a complex mix of regret, surprise, and perhaps a dawning respect in his eyes. The following week, as I began packing my boxes in earnest, moving with a sense of purpose I hadn't felt in years, there were difficult moments where the sadness of the broken trust felt overwhelming. But then I would look at the paperwork for my new apartment, or the welcome packet from Sunset Gardens, and a sense of quiet triumph would reaffirm my decision. When I started packing the photos and mementos in my room, preparing to leave the house I had once hoped would be my final family home, I wondered briefly if I was being too harsh, cutting ties too abruptly. But then Emma and Tyler came to my door, their eyes wide and filled with tears. "Grandma?" Emma whispered, her voice trembling. "Why are you leaving? Is it because of Mommy?" Tyler just hugged my legs tightly, burying his face in my skirt. Looking down at their precious, confused faces, I knew with absolute certainty that my decision was right. Not just for me, but for them too. I knelt, hugging them close. "Sometimes, my darlings," I explained softly, "grown-ups need their own space to be happy and strong. But that doesn't change how much I love you. Grandma isn't going far, and we will have new adventures together, I promise." It was not just about escaping Melissa. It was about showing my grandchildren what resilience looked like, teaching them, by example, the vital importance of respect, dignity, and the courage to stand up for yourself, no matter your age. My departure wasn't an ending. It was a lesson. Settling into my sun-drenched apartment at Sunset Gardens felt less like starting over and more like coming home to myself. 6 weeks after moving my boxes and arranging my familiar furniture in this bright, welcoming space, I found myself breathing easier than I had in years. The constant tension that had become my unwelcome companion in Daniel and Melissa's house slowly dissipated, replaced by a quiet sense of peace and possibility. My days took on a new, pleasant rhythm. Mornings spent enjoying coffee on my small balcony overlooking the meticulously kept rose garden. Afternoons dedicated to setting up my small workspace for the financial consulting role I was about to begin. And evenings often spent attending a resident lecture or joining a friendly game of bridge in the common room. One afternoon, while organizing my bookshelves, arranging the photos of Michael, Daniel, and the grandchildren alongside my favorite novels, I had a moment of profound clarity. For years, especially after Michael passed, my identity had felt inextricably linked to my roles: wife, mother, grandmother. I had subconsciously tailored my life to fit the needs and expectations of others, always trying not to be a burden, to take up too little space, to quietly contribute without causing disruption. Melissa's cruel plan, born of greed and disrespect, had inadvertently shattered that mold. The shock and pain had been immense, yes, but emerging from it, I found myself standing on my own 2 feet, not as someone defined by her relationship to others, but simply as Joyce Wilson. Independent, capable, resilient. It struck me then, this freedom, this quiet autonomy, this rediscovery of my own worth beyond familial roles, wasn't just a consolation prize salvaged from a painful situation. It was a gift. A harsh and unwanted gift initially, perhaps, delivered in the ugliest wrapping paper imaginable, but a gift nonetheless. Melissa's attempt to confine me had, paradoxically, liberated me. For the first time since Michael's passing, I felt genuinely excited about the future, my future. A future I was actively shaping according to my own desires and abilities. I wasn't just avoiding institutionalization. I was embracing life. This realization wasn't about bitterness or revenge. It was about a quiet, empowering truth. The ordeal had pushed me toward a better, more authentic version of myself, one I hadn't even known I was missing. Then, one late afternoon, there was an unexpected knock on my door. Not the cheerful rap of one of my new neighbors, but a more hesitant, tentative sound. Opening it, I found Daniel standing there, looking uncertain, holding a small bouquet of flowers. He hadn't called ahead. "Hi, Mom," he said quietly, his eyes meeting mine with a mixture of apprehension and sincerity I hadn't seen in a long time. Can I come in for a minute?" I hesitated only briefly. Seeing him standing there, looking vulnerable, tugged at my heartstrings. But the lessons of the past months were still fresh. Boundaries were important. "All right, Daniel," I said, stepping back to let him in, but keeping my tone neutral. "Just for a little while. I was about to start preparing dinner." He stepped inside, looking around the cozy living room, his gaze lingering on the photos. "It's nice here, Mom. You seem good." "I am good, Daniel," I replied truthfully, happier than I've been in a long time. He turned to face me, the flowers held awkwardly in his hands. "Mom, I came here to apologize, properly, for everything." His voice was thick with emotion. "I should have seen what Melissa was doing. I should have listened to you, listened to my gut. I let her convince me you weren't yourself. I let her blind me because it was easier than confronting her, confronting the truth. I failed you, Mom. As a son, I failed you, and I am so sorry." The sincerity in his voice was palpable. It felt different from his previous attempts to smooth things over. This felt like genuine remorse, a true reckoning with his own weakness and complicity. He continued, looking down at the flowers. Things haven't been good at home since you left. Once I saw the evidence you showed us, I started seeing other things too, other lies, manipulations, mostly about money, about her ambitions. We're talking about separation, maybe divorce. I realized I don't know the woman I married nearly as well as I thought I did. Hearing this didn't bring me satisfaction, only a sense of sadness for him, for the grandchildren. But it also confirmed the depth of Melissa's duplicity. It wasn't just about me. It was her character. Now came the difficult part for me. My instinct was to rush in, comfort him, perhaps even offer to help mediate. But the new Joyce, the one forged in the fire of betrayal, knew better. Compassion, yes. Enabling? No. I had to choose how to respond. Hold on to the justified anger, or offer forgiveness while maintaining the essential boundaries I had fought so hard to establish. "Daniel," I said, my voice soft but firm. "I appreciate your apology, truly, and I accept it. I know this hasn't been easy for you either." I paused, choosing my words carefully. "I love you very much. You are my son, but things have changed. What happened? It broke something important between us, and between me and Melissa. It will take time to heal. I am happy to see you, to see the children, but my life is here now. I need this independence. I need these boundaries to stay strong." I decided not to comment directly on his marital issues. That was his path to navigate. My focus needed to remain on preserving my own hard-won peace and autonomy. I would forgive, yes, but I would not forget the lesson learned. Our relationship could rebuild, but it would be on new, healthier terms, terms defined by mutual respect, not obligation or manipulation. Daniel seemed to understand, accepting the boundaries I set without argument. He stayed a little longer, telling me about Emma's success in the school spelling bee and Tyler's latest obsession with dinosaurs. It was a normal conversation, the kind we hadn't had without an underlying tension for so long. As he was getting ready to leave, he paused at the door, turning back to me with something else on his mind. "There's one more thing, Mom," he said, looking almost sheepish. "About the house, the buyout." I braced myself slightly, wondering if there was going to be a problem with the appraisal or the funds. "I've been thinking a lot," he continued, fiddling with his car keys, "about what that house represents. Your contribution, Dad's memory. Melissa wanted to sell it, cash in. But I can't do it, so I've decided I'm not putting it on the market." He took a breath. "Instead, I'm looking into refinancing. I want to buy out the LLC's share myself, Mom. Keep the house. It feels like the right thing to do. Every time I thought about selling the place you helped build, it felt like selling a part of you, a part of our family's real story." That was the moment that surprised me most. Not the apology, but this. This decision, driven by sentiment and respect rather than financial expediency, showed a deeper change in Daniel than I had dared to hope for. It was a quiet validation, an acknowledgement of my contribution and my place in the family's history, more meaningful than any amount of money. It suggested that perhaps, despite everything, the values Michael and I had tried to instill in him were still there, buried beneath the pressures and manipulations he had endured. "That means a lot, Daniel," I said softly, genuinely touched. "Thank you." Life settled into its new, fulfilling rhythm. My part-time consulting work at Sunset Gardens proved to be incredibly rewarding. Sharing my financial knowledge, helping other seniors navigate retirement planning, protecting their assets, it gave me a renewed sense of purpose. I made new friends, women and men with rich life experiences, forming connections based on mutual respect and shared interests, not just familial obligation. We took art classes together, joined a walking club, debated current events over dinner. I felt stimulated, engaged, seen. My relationship with Daniel slowly began to mend, rebuilt on the foundation of honesty and the clear boundaries I maintained. He visited regularly, sometimes alone, sometimes bringing Emma and Tyler. Our weekends together became precious again. Trips to the park, visits to museums, baking cookies in my new, smaller kitchen, which felt just as warm and loving as the old one. The children thrived on the uncomplicated affection, sensing the absence of tension. They never directly asked about Melissa's diminished presence during these visits. Perhaps, in their childlike wisdom, they understood more than the adults gave them credit for. I learned through Daniel that he and Melissa did eventually separate, dividing assets, including the house he now solely owned after buying out my share through the refinancing he'd mentioned. I felt a pang of sadness for the disruption in my grandchildren's lives, but also relief that the source of so much toxicity was no longer defining their home environment. My relationship with Melissa became cordial but distant, limited to necessary interactions concerning the children. There was no further conflict, only a quiet understanding that a line had been drawn and respected. Looking back, it is strange how life works. Melissa's cruel plan, documented in that crimson diary, was meant to erase me, to confine me to the margins of my own life. Instead, it became the catalyst for my rebirth. It forced me to confront my own passivity, to reclaim my strength, and to build a future I hadn't known I was capable of creating. The diary, initially a symbol of betrayal, took on a new meaning. Inspired by my experience, I started keeping my own journal again, not to document grievances, but to capture the moments of joy, the lessons learned, the quiet satisfaction of my new independence. And recently, encouraged by Linda Parker and some of my fellow residents, I even started a small, anonymous blog sharing insights on financial literacy for seniors and, occasionally, more personal reflections on navigating life's unexpected turns with resilience and grace. Helping others avoid the pitfalls I had encountered felt like turning the poison into medicine, completing the circle. Sometimes, the people we love most, or the circumstances we fear most, push us onto paths we never would have chosen. Paths that lead us to unexpected strength and unforeseen happiness. Melissa tried to put me in a nursing home, labeling me as frail and forgetful. But in doing so, she inadvertently pushed me toward the most vibrant and autonomous chapter of my life yet. At 69, soon to be 70, I found myself again, not just as a mother or a grandmother, but as Joyce Wilson, financial consultant, blogger, friend, survivor, and a woman with agency, value, and a future still brightly unfolding. Thank you so much for listening to my story today. It means the world to share it with you. If my journey resonated with you, if you found a piece of your own experience reflected here, please give this video a like and consider subscribing to our channel. We share stories like this regularly, hoping to offer connection, inspiration, and the reminder that you are stronger than you think. Please share your thoughts in the comments below. Your insights enrich our community. And remember, no matter your age or circumstances, it is never too late to rewrite your script, to stand up for your worth, and to start a new chapter. Click here to watch another story you might find meaningful. I am Joyce Wilson, sending you warmth and strength. Goodbye for now, and I hope to see you again in the next story.